Today, I'm diving into the most spine chilling encounters that park rangers would rather keep under wraps. Can you handle the truth behind these scary stories? I've been a park ranger for 12 years, and I've walked trails most people wouldn't last 10 minutes on. I've patched up hunters mauled by bears, dug lost hikers out of snowstorms, and even pulled a man out of a river minutes before hypothermia killed him. But nothing, not frostbite, not predators, not even the corpses I've found in the woods, has ever gotten under my skin the way Devil's Hollow has. The hollow is an ugly wound in the forest, half a mile wide, with sheer limestone walls and a swamp at the bottom. It's older than the park itself. Local tribes called it a cursed place. Loggers in the 1800s refused to work within a mile of it, saying the trees whispered lies. Even today, the air around it feels wrong. A month before Halloween last year, my supervisor put me on rotating night shifts. It was supposed to be a simple patrol: check the trailheads, secure the observation deck, report any trespassers. My partner called in sick that night, leaving me alone. I didn't mind. I thought I knew the forest. By 10:30 p.m., I'd parked my truck at the ridge road. The wind was sharp, cold enough to sting my cheeks. Dead leaves crunched under my boots as I started the quarter-mile hike to the hollow. The forest felt stripped bare, branches skeletal, shadows long and deep. The observation deck is nothing more than a steel railing bolted into rock. When I stepped onto it, the world seemed to drop away into black. The swamp below was veiled in mist, curling like smoke from a slow fire. Somewhere far off, an owl cried, then silence. I swept my flashlight across the swamp floor. That's when I saw them, two pale white dots, low to the ground, about 30 feet below. My first thought was deer eyes, but they didn't blink, didn't move, just stared straight at me. I lowered the beam for a second, then brought it back. The dots were gone. My skin tightened, the kind of instinct you don't ignore. Then I heard it, footsteps in the water. Not the skitter of a raccoon or the splash of a heron. These were slow, deliberate. Splash. Pause. Splash. Pause. I keep my radio. Station, this is Ranger Cole. I've got movement in the hollow. Any campers reported in the area? Static. Not even a hint of a reply. I switched channels. Nothing. The footsteps kept circling, moving in a wide arc at the bottom. I shined my light, but the mist was too thick to cut through. My gut told me to leave, but protocol said to monitor until I could confirm no civilians were down there. Around midnight, the footsteps stopped. Silence, thick and absolute. Then came a new sound, scraping. The walls of Devil's Hollow are almost vertical, but whatever was down there was climbing like it had done it 1,000 times. The sound wasn't right. Wet. Suction like pulls against stone, each one closer than the last. I stepped back from the railing. My light caught movement. Long, pale fingers curling over the edge. They were too long for a human hand, and tipped with black nails that looked more like claws. The thing's head rose into view. Its skin was the color of candle wax, stretched over bones that jutted at unnatural angles. It crouched on the lip of the hollow, staring with eyes that glowed the same white I'd seen earlier. It didn't move toward me at first. It just stayed there, head tilted slightly, as if smelling the air. My instincts took over. I turned and started down the trail, keeping my light on the ground so I wouldn't trip. Behind me, I heard it climb the rest of the way up, and then the sound of it following. The forest exploded with noise, branches snapping, leaves crunching, something moving fast and heavy through the underbrush. It was pacing me, just out of sight, matching every step I took. I broke into a run. My boots slipped on loose leaves, my breath burning in my chest. The thing moved faster. I could hear it on both sides now, like it was circling me in the dark. When I finally broke out of the trees into the gravel lot where my truck was parked, I didn't stop moving. I yanked the door open, slammed it shut, and turned the key. Headlights blazed across the tree lane, and it was there, 7 feet tall, standing just beyond the reach of the light, motionless except for the slight tilt of its head. The white of its eyes didn't blink. I floored it. The gravel spat from my tires as I tore down the ridge road toward the station. The chief didn't believe a word. He said I'd seen a bear or a shadow playing tricks. But the next morning, we went back to the hollow together. The limestone where I'd seen the fingers was gouged with fresh claw marks. And in the mud at the swamp's edge, there were footprints, almost human, but too long, with a second heel-like impression behind the first, as if the foot bent in 2 places. We plaster cast one. It's locked in the evidence room now, labeled Unidentified Animal Track. I've never gone back to Devil's Hollow alone, but every so often, when I'm out on a late shift, I feel the air go still, and I swear, I can see 2 pale white dots staring at me from between the trees. Raven's Gorge is the kind of place you either love or fear. The locals call it the throat of the forest. It's a deep, narrow canyon cut into the earth, with walls so steep, the sun barely touches the bottom except for a few minutes at noon. There's a river down there, and in summer it's calm enough for fishing. In winter, though, it turns into a black, roaring thing that can swallow a man without leaving a trace. I'd been a park ranger for 6 years when they assigned me. The night shift at the gorge. Most rangers hate that post. The trails are tight, the drop-offs are sheer, and radio reception is almost non-existent once you're a quarter mile in. But I didn't mind, at least not until the last shift I ever worked there. It was early December. The park had already closed for the season, which meant the place was dead quiet. Snow had fallen the week before, and the air was so cold that my breath felt like it froze before it left my mouth. My patrol was simple. Hike the North Rim Trail. Check for any signs of illegal campers or poachers, and make sure no one had wandered too close to the gorge edge. At around 10:15 p.m., I parked at the north lot and set out with my flashlight and radio. The first stretch was easy, a straight path through pine forest, the snow crunching softly under my boots. I remember thinking it was almost peaceful. Almost. Then I heard it, a low hum just on the edge of hearing. At first I thought it was the wind moving through the canyon, but it was too steady, too deliberate. I stopped walking, and it stopped too. I swept my flashlight across the trees. Nothing, just trunks and shadows. I kept moving. The hum came back, louder this time. It wasn't mechanical. It was vocal, like someone humming a slow, tuneless note deep in their throat. I keep my radio. Station, this is Ranger Pike. I'm hearing something unusual on the North Rim. Can anyone confirm wildlife activity tonight? Static. No reply. The trail curved, leading to an overlook point with a guardrail. I stepped up to it, looking down into the gorge. The river was moving sluggishly, chunks of ice drifting in the current. My beam caught the far side of the canyon, and for just a second, I saw something standing on the opposite rim. It was tall, much taller than a man, and completely still. The snow around it looked untouched, like it had just appeared there. My light reflected off its head, and I realized it wasn't wearing anything bright. Its face, or what I thought was a face, was just pale, featureless skin. I blinked, and it was gone. I stood there, pulse hammering in my ears. The hum started again, but this time it was coming from below me, from inside the gorge. I leaned over the rail, aiming my light down. The beam caught a shape halfway up the canyon wall, clinging to the rock like a spider. It had limbs too long for its body, bent in ways that made my stomach turn. Its head tilted up toward me, and I saw those same pale, blank features. It moved fast, too fast. I backed away from the railing and turned to head down the trail. But the hum grew louder, almost vibrating in my bones. The snow in the trees to my left shifted. Branches shook. Something was moving up from the canyon side, parallel to me, but hidden in the forest. I kept my pace steady at first, not wanting to break into a run and lose my footing on the icy path. Then I heard the crunch of snow behind me. Heavy, deliberate steps. I started walking faster. The steps matched me. I broke into a run, my boots sliding on patches of ice. The trail seemed longer than I remembered, the forest pressing in on either side. Every few seconds, I caught a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision, long limbs, pale skin, keeping pace in the shadows. When the parking lot finally came into view, my relief was short-lived. It was standing next to my truck, not in front of it, not blocking me, just standing there, humming, head tilted like it was curious. The sound rolled out of it in a constant, unbroken note. I stopped at the tree line, my breath ragged in the frozen air. The thing didn't move toward me. It just watched. Or maybe it was listening. I decided I wasn't going to make it to the truck without it closing the distance. So I turned and went back into the trees, looping around through a section of forest I knew well. I stayed low, using the trunks as cover, and made my way to the opposite end of the lot. When I finally broke out of the trees, my truck was empty. The thing was gone. I didn't waste a second. I unlocked the door, got inside, and tore down the access road without even looking in the mirrors. At the station, I told my supervisor what I'd seen. He stared at me for a long time before saying, "You're not the first to report something like that up there." Apparently, for the last 20 years, rangers and hikers alike had reported a tall, pale figure at Raven's Gorge, sometimes on the rim, sometimes halfway down the wall, sometimes right behind them in the snow. No one had ever been attacked, but no one had ever followed it either. I quit night shifts after that, and every winter, when the river freezes over and the gorge goes silent, I hear that hum in my dreams. The wind through high ash woods never sounded quite right at night. Even before the incident, I'd always noticed how it seemed to move in patterns, starting low on one side of the ridge and curling back toward itself, like something breathing. The park called it a microclimate. The old rangers called it a warning. It was late October, a week before the seasonal closure, and I was covering the last shift for Ranger Mendez, who'd called out sick. The plan was simple: check the southern boundary fence, log any fallen trees, and return before midnight. It was cold enough that my breath came out in white bursts, and the leaves on the oaks had turned so dark they looked almost black against the sky. Hyash had a reputation for losing people. Not many, 3 hikers in 30 years, but enough that locals didn't camp here. The stories always sounded the same. Someone wanders off the trail. Someone else goes looking, and they never find a body. I parked my truck at the south lot and started along the fence line. The air smelled like damp leaves and something metallic, like old pennies. I told myself it was just wet ironwood bark. Half an hour in, my flashlight beam caught movement ahead, something small, low to the ground. At first I thought it was a fox, but as I got closer I saw it was a child. A boy, maybe 7 or 8, wearing a dark hoodie and no shoes. His skin was pale to the point of looking blue in the beam. He stood facing the fence, unmoving. "Hey, kid," I called, my voice sharper than I meant. No reaction. I approached slowly. The leaves under my boots seemed too loud in the stillness. When I got within 20 feet, the boy finally turned his head. His eyes caught the light in a way I can't explain, not like animal eye shine, more like a reflection in glass. "You shouldn't be out here," I said. "Where are your parents?" He didn't answer. He just looked past me, into the trees. That was when I heard the second set of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming from the dark behind me. I swung my light toward the sound. The beam landed on something tall, taller than me by at least 2 feet, standing between the trees. It had the shape of a man, but the proportions were wrong. The arms too long, the legs jointed strangely. Its skin was the same pale shade as the boy's, and its face wasn't there. Just smooth, featureless skin where eyes and mouth should be. The boy turned fully toward it, and the thing moved. Not toward me, toward him. I didn't think, I just acted. I stepped between them and shone the light full in its direction. The beam seemed to bend against it, as though the darkness around it was thicker than the rest of the forest. It stopped moving. I grabbed the boy's wrist. His skin was ice cold, colder than the night air. "We're going," I said, and started back toward the truck. The footsteps followed, not close enough to see without turning the light, but close enough that I could hear the crunch of leaves in perfect rhythm with mine. The boy never said a word. His small hand didn't even grip mine. It just hung limp as I pulled him along. When the lot came into view, I felt a surge of relief until I saw my truck. The driver's door was hanging wide open. I knew I'd closed it. I shoved the boy inside, climbed in after him, and slammed the door. My keys were still in the ignition. I turned them, the engine roared, and my headlights swept across the tree line. The thing stood there, just at the edge of the light, its head tilted as if curious. The boy looked at it and finally spoke. In a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "It's not done." Before I could ask what he meant, the passenger door latch clicked. The boy was gone. Gone. I hadn't looked away. I swear I hadn't. 1 second he was there. The next the seat was empty and the door was swinging shut. I slammed the truck into reverse, turned, and sped out of the lot. Back at the station, I tried to file my report. The chief ranger listened without interrupting, then told me to leave the kid out of the official record. "They never stay," he said. "Not the kids." I pressed him for details, but he wouldn't say more. He just told me that if I valued my sleep, I should never work high ash after dark again. That was 2 years ago. I haven't been back, but sometimes, when the wind outside my house picks up, I hear the crunch of footsteps in the leaves, always matching mine.